Well, welcome to our third interview today of couples who are homeschooling together. Somebody once said that the best thing a husband and wife can do for their family is to love each other well. So we are talking about a lot this week about families standing together and learning together and being committed to each other. So this is a great way to find out how you can work with your husband or wife, maybe in a better and different way as you homeschool. Every couple is different. Everybody will have strengths and weaknesses, and husbands and wives will take on different roles. So there's no right and wrong. We just want to encourage you to take a little time out to discuss together how you as husband and wife can work together. So it's really an honor and pleasure to introduce to you our guest in this interview segment, Mike and Abbie Knott. Mike is the director of Homeschool for us, and Abbie, his wife, is one of our fabulous Homeworks consultants. And so they are very involved in all things homeschooling. They have 3 kids, and it's just a real pleasure to welcome y'all today.
Hi.
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 We have 4 kids, by the way.
Yeah, I wanted 3 kids. Just like a friend of mine said, well, so which one am I giving back? Okay, so 4 kids. I knew that. So first of all, tell us how long you've been married and how long you've been homeschooling.
We have been homeschooling since our oldest was in K4. So we've been married. We're going on 15 years this year, and she started K4 back in, what was it, 2013?
Yeah.
So I guess it'll be 10 years this year.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's a milestone, being married for 15 years and homeschooling for 10 years. Those are important milestones. Y'all need to go somewhere great and celebrate.
That's the plan.
Okay, so whose idea was it to homeschool in the first place?
It was definitely not mine. I don't know. I'm sort of on an interesting journey. Like I'm now the director of Homeschool, and I think if you had told me 10 years ago I'd be the director of Homeschool and homeschooling my kids, I probably would have laughed at you. I had no intention of homeschooling. I didn't even know what homeschooling really was 10, 15 years ago. Abbie's really the one that introduced me to all of it.
Way to go, Abbie.
Abbie's a second generation homeschool mom. And, once we had kids, we obviously had to start thinking about how are we going to raise them. And it just wasn't on my radar. I didn't have anything against it or for it. It just wasn't on my radar at all. Hadn't really thought about it. And, once I saw the outcome of Abbie and her family, who have all been homeschooled, and started knowing a little bit more about homeschooling and the benefits of it, I was sold. So Abbie has everything to do with us homeschooling, but I'm all behind it now. So, yeah.
So, Abbie, tell us what it's like to be a second generation homeschooler, because I've often wondered, because I was like a first generation homeschooler who didn't know anybody in the world who homeschooled. So when you come to homeschool, having been homeschooled, does it help you with your fears, or do you still feel all the same pressures and anxiety that other homeschoolers feel?
So we're in Pennsylvania, and there have always been some pretty strict guidelines as far as what's required for us. That hasn't really changed. It's actually been lessened over the years. So it was a lot harder when I was a kid for my mom to homeschool us. There were a lot more requirements as far as what we had to turn in as far as paperwork to the school district. But she was a college-trained Christian school teacher who taught for a year in a Christian school before she had kids. So she was much more prepared than I was to actually physically teach her children. So as far as that goes, that was a little bit more on me as far as what I was capable of doing, because I love the idea of homeschooling, which that's one of the reasons why we chose to use our video courses through BJU Press. If I had to teach everything, it would have been a frazzled mess all the time, because I like the idea of organizing and I like the idea of scheduling, but actually executing those plans is terrible. I don't know how my mom did it. She had 5 of us at once, all homeschooling, and she was able to manage it. We got our portfolios done. We all had music lessons. She just ran it really, really well, and I'm just not that organized. So.
Well, for Tana Meyer, who was on my podcast not long ago, I think she has 6 or 7 kids. I'm not doing well today with the number of kids people have, but she always calls herself a type B homeschool mom because she's definitely type A. And so I think it helps those of us who have a hard time executing a plan to hear you say those things.
And, I know with us and other couples we talk to around the country about homeschooling, homeschooling adds a new level of stress in your marriage, in your relationship, in the dynamics of your home. So what are some ways that you guys have kept your marriage so strong?
I think it just comes down to grace, right? Like you've got to recognize that, well, Abbie does 95% of her homeschooling. So she's here with the kids like 24/7. So, we don't get to send them off to school. There's no field trips. There's always grading to do. They're just here all the like they're here right now. We actually locked them in the schoolroom during our interview. Like they're always here. And that's not a bad thing. They're just always here. And so like other parts of life just happen to be not priority, right? So the house might not be as clean as you want it to be, or we may not get to go on that family vacation we wanted. And I think it's just a constant reminder to me personally, like she's dealing with all those things. So it's a little bit of just putting yourself to the side and just recognizing that like there's a bigger picture here, and just recognizing that she needs the grace to be able to get through the day because there are only 24 hours in the day, I think. So I don't know.
And for me, it's a lot more of relying on him when he comes home to pitch in and finish up what I was unable to get through during the day, because I do try and have dinner on the table in a normal amount of time from when he gets home from work. But sometimes that means I stop a task in the middle. And so he gets the kids together and he's like, hey guys, let's finish this up so mom can cook dinner. Hey guys, come and set the table. So I don't have to think about doing that while I'm also trying to get dinner on the table and get the house continually moving. So for me, that's been really helpful because my number one priority during the day is making sure the kids' schooling is done, making sure I'm not falling too far behind on grading because that's something that does fall by the wayside. And just in general, making sure they're going to their activities because we do not just stay home. They do have outside activities, at least one a day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all just recognizing what's important and what's not and setting priorities and make sure we're on the same page about what those priorities are, I think. So,
one thing that we have in common as couples is that, Mike, you travel a lot and Joe traveled a lot when we were homeschooling. So Joe always did a great job. Joe, you can chime in anytime you want to with this. Just in keeping in touch with me. This is before cell phones and email and all of that. So he was always finding phones while he was out eating with customers, or it was really hard. But so what do you do, Abbie or Mike, in those times when Mike's on the road to keep your sanity?
What's that?
So, this sounds really kind of silly, but when he's not here, we have basically soup night for dinner. And it's very easy. I just throw it in a pot and let it go. And he doesn't like eating soup as a main meal.
It's really because I hate soup.
But it's easy for me to throw together. And then I just make a giant pot. And the whole time he's gone, that's what we eat for dinner.
Yeah.
So we do that. And as far as like, I'll text him throughout the day, just be like, hey, the kids are doing XYZ today. I'm going to be out tonight. Could you call the kids on the Alexa and say goodnight, please? So they go to bed.
Yeah, obviously technology has made things a lot easier. I don't know how you did it, Joe. I get text messages from the older kids. Actually, most of the kids have Kids Messenger now, so they can kind of talk directly to me. We have Alexas, so I can talk to them anytime I want on the Alexa. There's quite a few ways to be able to just chat with them when I need to, or if they want to send me a picture or talk to me, whatever they can. Obviously, that's not the same as being there in person, but it's a lot better than nothing. They know when they can contact me, and I usually try and make an effort to get with them at the end of the night before bed or something like that. So,
and Mike,
I do travel. I do travel quite a bit. So yeah.
I also noticed that you do tons of projects as a family. I
We
noticed
do.
that especially during COVID. Did you do those before COVID as well? And how has that played a role in, I guess, just your relationships within the family?
I don't think I've ever stopped working, so it's nothing to do with COVID.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a pretty avid DIYer. I probably remodeled our house at least 3 or 4 times now, and do a lot of church projects and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, to me, I just love doing it for one. So, like before we even had kids, I love doing these things. But then, now that we have kids, to me, education isn't just about the curriculum and doing the schoolwork in the classroom. It's about like life skills and teaching them work ethic, getting up and just attacking each day, doing the best you can, no matter what it is. And, I do a lot of just hands-on projects, whether it's building a deck or building a shed or painting a room or whatever it is. Some of my kids like doing that stuff. Some of they don't, but I get them all involved on some level. It's interesting as they're getting a little bit older. It's interesting to see now which ones sort of have a knack for it, and some of them have a desire to do those sort of things. But again, those are all just life skills that I want them to be able to have. That one day they may be able to contribute that to their family, or maybe it builds a career. I don't know. But I love doing that stuff in general, but even more so with the kids. That Abby jumps in and helps where she can too. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
So do y'all have any type of planning time together where you sit down as a couple and talk about what you want to do for a semester or a year or a week, or do you just kind of, Abby does the planning and you support her?
We pick out, like I plan the curriculum out. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Again, using the video courses, we're doing mostly just the straight on grades for each kid, electives. But what we do plan, we do a lot of camping together as a family. Like we'll take our camper out 4 or 5 times a year sometimes. So he'll look and be like, hey, this is around where we're camping. Do you want to do a day here for this field trip? Was it last year we went to Harrisburg?
Yeah.
So we actually toured the Capitol because we were camping right near there, and we've toured several coal mines, a couple coal museums. It was a very coal-oriented year, so much so that our annual Christmas ornament we bought as our family to remember the year was a lump of coal.
hanging on our Christmas tree.
But he really gets involved in more of that sort of thing, and any other extracurriculars. Like he'll be like, hey, let's go out to the park down the road. Like we have French Creek State Park is down the road. So we'll go down there and take walks, go fishing. So he gets involved in more of that kind of thing than.
Yeah. And as far as curriculum planning, I mean, we do 100% PG Press, obviously. So we're doing mostly video lessons. So they're pretty much set for us. So let's wait to make some adjustments. So, some of the things we've talked about, like our older daughter is really good at math. So we talked about maybe moving her up, and she did this year and did well. Some of the Bible courses, we decided to do those things together. And then this year our oldest is going to be 14 in August. So she's sort of getting into like high school electives, which is interesting. So we're trying to figure out languages and those sort of things, what we want to do there together. But for the most part, the core curriculum, they're sort of on a track, and we know where they're going to be. So, yep.
Well, I know. So I want to get back to what you talked about with soup, Abby, because meal times are really a big deal when you have a lot of kids. And I had boys, and they played a lot of sports. And so we would, we'd wake up in the morning, eat breakfast, they'd want a snack, eat lunch, they'd want a snack, eat supper, want a snack, and then cereal before they went to bed. And so I just remember one time Joe was out of town, and one of the kids had chicken pox. And so we just did Dominoes every night. I could not cope with anything else. So like 3 nights in a row, we do Dominoes, and we would always pray. It was in the days where if they were 30 minutes late, you got the pizza free. So we had 2 free nights out of the 3. That was good. And so Joe walks in, and he looks at us, and we're a mess after he's been gone all week. And he says, listen, don't cook tonight. We're having Dominoes. And I'm looking at the boys, and I'm saying, don't say a word.
Yeah, I wanted to throw the box away, and there was a stack of Domino boxes in the trash.
Yeah, when he went to call and order Dominoes, they said, oh, Mr. Tyler, you're calling tonight.
Yeah.
So, but it's, homeschooling is not always this pretty, beautiful thing that you see in the magazines, but you do work together somehow, and you make it work through the hard days and the, the hard years. Sometimes you just have a period of hardness. So is there anything else you want to say or ask Mike about in particular?
I know one of the things I've enjoyed talking to you about, Mike, is the various projects that come along that your kids initiate, where they get interested in something and you dive in there with them.
In Charleston. Yeah. So.
Oh, the treasure hunt. Yeah. Well, that could be a whole, thing in itself, but yeah. I mean, we did this treasure hunt thing in Charleston where my daughter found I could go forever on this thing. It's a treasure that's been buried around the country, and my daughter did all these different research projects to figure out kind of where it is. It's been buried there for 40 years. So she and I decided to go down to Charleston last summer to see if we could figure it out. And that's one of those things. Like, it really turned into an educational trip. We're there at Fort Sumter. Got to hear all the history of the Charleston Battery and all that too. We never found the treasure. It's in a park that if we dig, we're probably going to go to jail. So we're not going to dig. But we think we know where it is. So.
But not to sound sappy, this really does sound sappy, but the treasure really is that time you had with her.
Yeah.
That bonding time and doing all those things you'll talk about forever.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a forever memory. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I know that Joe was real involved with our boys with sports, and Lizzie with her musical theater. And so he would take care of a lot of those things, which there are just some days I just felt like, okay, I can't handle one more thing. And Joe would come in and be the superhero for the day. So do y'all have any other thoughts that you want to leave with moms and dads about? Were you going to say something?
Mm-mm.
Okay. About working together or supporting each other?
I think the one thing I would say for any new parents or new homeschooling parents is there's a lot of planning involved, and it's never going to be perfect. Like you said, Zan, homeschooling is not always beautiful. There's always going to be good days and bad days. And I think it's just recognizing that, like, no matter where you start, you're already homeschooling on some level. Whether you figured out your curriculum or not, like if you're involved with your kids and you love your kids, you're already homeschooling. You just got to figure out the curriculum part of it. So, like, you can start today. Like, you can go out and do the field trips. You can be involved. You can figure out a plan with your wife and figure out, how are you as parents going to raise your children? So on some level, you're already doing that. And then I think the last advice, and this is just for me as a dad who travels quite a lot, and Joe, you can relate, or any other dads listening. I probably travel 4 or 5 months out of the year, so I'm away quite a bit. And I would just say, like, you don't get a do-over in parenting. And I don't mean it in a bad way, but like, there's only so many years. There's only so many times. There's only so many recitals. There's only so many sports games. You've got to be really intentional about wanting to be with your kids and making sure your schedules really align, or you're going to miss that. Like you don't get a do-over. You don't get to do it again. So I've been really intentional about that, just trying to make sure my schedule's aligned. So I'm here for really important events like birthdays and those sort of things. Like, you don't want to grow up and realize, man, I missed all that stuff because my travel schedule is so bad. So I know there's a lot of dads in the same boat as me where you're on the road a lot, but you got to figure out a way to make it work or you're going to miss out on a lot. So if you have anyone to.
For me, it's just learning to say yes to more of the fun things, even if you might leave some chores undone, because the chores will be there later.
Right. That is so true. Well, do you have anything you want to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, thank y'all so much for being with us today. It's an encouragement to me to hear your story. And I know you encourage the moms and dads out there, but those of you who are with us, we want to say thank you for being here and being part of this interview. And we hope that this encourages you as you're homeschooling together and standing for your family together.